You ever been mad?
That's solid writing.
What's up, guys? All Pencil here, and here we are to do a breakdown and review of chapter 128 of Four Nights of the Apocalypse, which is known as The Day You Went Away. And oh yeah, it's Four Nights of the Apocalypse, alright, because the apocalypse is incoming. But let's not waste, we have so much to talk about. Let's not waste any more time, and let's hop right into it. Editing me. Ready? 3, 2, 1, go. What's up, guys? It's Zach with the Pencil here. Fun fact, I have it on me, and I keep it on me at all times, and oh, this is a chapter, alright. This chapter is chaptering. This is, this chapter is chaptering. I have thoughts. I have thoughts. Let's just take it step by step. So we open up with Percy thinking on the information he was just given by Mortlock and fact-checking with information he got earlier from, as he calls him, Jiggly, Zorula, and I call him Zaza. As we see, Zaza is reiterating what he said earlier. You simply entered the mind of the human being named Percival. We are life spirits, all part of a greater being. And since at first Percy kind of denied this because it seemed to go against everything he was, this did seem like something that would fundamentally contradict, his entire life's ethos, getting revenge against his father, his real dad, for the slaughter of his grandfather, his real grandfather. But while before he could kind of somewhat deny it for the fact that this was just a random thing that magically appeared within him that was apparently just sitting inside him quiet for 16 years. So sure, while Jigglyval or Jiggly or Zaza has been helpful in terms of making Percy stronger and more viable of a combatant, it doesn't mean he can entirely be trusted or anything like that. So, take it with a grain of salt. Who wouldn't take it with a grain of salt if they were suddenly told, oh yeah, BT Dubs, you're not actually a being with free will. You're just a part of a hive mind of things that bring life and destruction. And not even like the Dragon Ball God of Destruction, Supreme Kai kind of way, where you do still have individuality and you're born a creature that can make your own decisions. No, you're just a life spirit that decided to randomly possess a body for reasons, I suppose. He got that explanation at first, but he was like, whatever. Like, if I were to randomly tell you, BT Dubs, you don't exist, by the way, or at least the you that you think you are, the name you've lived for how many years you've lived, that's actually not canon. Not canon at all. In reality, you are simply a projection of a being from a higher mental consciousness reflected into a physical form that you stole from another human being. Of course, you look at me funny like, okay, Pencil Man, you can't even speak English half the time. What makes you think I'm going to believe that? Of course. But now he just got hard confirmation from his uncle. Now, admittedly, I'll hold on. Hold off. I'm going to put a pause on the thoughts that I have about that. But, of course, Percy now has dual lock confirmation. Like, everyone with modern phones, you got that two-step verification. You got to do it whenever you log in and anything. Bada bing, bada boom. Percy got that two-step verification. Took a little bit, but he got it. And as he says, Jiggly was telling the truth. This is the only bit of humor in this chapter, by the way. The mention of Jiggly. That's it. That's about the only bit of humor in this chapter. It's only going to get darker from here, so get ready. Jiggly was telling the truth. I was just a vessel. He got so I could be Grandpa's real grandson. But if I had never found out who I really was, and you can see, obviously, if you got a two-step verification on your existential crisis, you would probably be worried too. As he's like slowly but surely, all the pieces are one by one falling into place. Like, weird stuff. Why haven't I aged properly? Why is my body like this? Why do I feel weird sometimes? Why can I always auto-res? Why does it feel like this isn't actually my body? Why are people saying these strange things? Why does my own father despise me so much? Now everything's clicking into place now that the confirmation that he's not really Percy is locked in. He's stealing another person's name, body, and face when he's not really supposed to. Sure, he's supposed to give life. He's supposed to be a life spirit, but outside of that, Percy's not really Percy. He's Zorula and Do. He's the Great One, or a fraction of whatever the Great One is, because we still don't know that. A lot of people have been theorizing it's either chaos or maybe like a greater being than chaos, implying much higher levels of raw power for the Seven Deadly Sins verse, and hypothetically that chaos is simply a refraction of the Great One that in a way was kind of completing the whole life spirit journey by going to a place in space near a star and creating life on a world it just created. Like, it's essentially, a lot of people are theorizing that chaos is like an ultra life spirit, while people like Jigglypuff or Zaza and Percy are like baby life spirits. Maybe life spirits refracted off of chaos, the original, and then chaos is a refraction off the original, and then maybe the original has an original, and like there's the endless path that you could kind of walk down with. Well, what is the metric for the original Great One? What does that mean? But of course, we don't get much clarification for that. But now Percy realizes that, not really a person. That's no good. And we're going to see why that's no good at all. Because we see that ultimately, there is the timeline we have right now, the 4 Nights of the Apocalypse timeline that we've been following for upwards of 3 years now. The story of Percival, well, of course, not really Percival, the story of Zaza, or whatever Percy's individual name would be, if he even has an individual name as a life spirit. But due to this, we have the current timeline. But in an alternate world where Varghese did not interfere, where Varghese did not take the newly imbued life spirit baby away, Deodra perishes, or at least the original flesh of Deodra perishes, and awakens within the new body, the new vessel, Percival, or the human baby once known as Percival. And this, in this alternate world, is now Deodra. Now, this is a question I have for y'all. This is a genuine question. How do y'all feel about cloning? How do you feel about the idea of you not actually existing? Or let's say that's the wrong way to put it. You do exist. You are a valid being. But let's say, maybe you want to teleport in logical real world ways, or some scenario comes up. How would you feel if I made an exact duplicate of your consciousness with all your memories, all your being? Heck, I'll even take a portion of whatever you believe a soul is. What if I ripped that out of you? Took this, pierced your old body's heart, and placed you not in an exact replica of your old body. No, nowhere near that. The body of a stranger. Sure, that body's consciousness is overwritten. You don't, whoever that person was going to be, or whoever that person was, irrelevant. They are now you. Would you be down with that? Would you feel like you still? Like, I don't, get me wrong, I know biologically, I think we lose. I remember watching the Imaginary Access video a while back. I think like 98% of our bodies like get replaced every year. Like, billions upon billions of our cells are consistently perishing and then making new cells, and that process degrades as we get older and older and older, and thusly the half-life limit and all stuff like that. So technically, I know pencil from last year is a completely different pencil from the me now, will be a completely different pencil from the me in the future. But I don't know, at least to me, something about the continuity of self, the recognition that pencil at 1 year old is the same living, breathing being as the pencil that currently exists, as will hopefully be the living, breathing being as the pencil that exists 20 years from now. That's the continuity of me. That's a person who I am, that I can place value in, knowing that this hand, with all of its features, is an evolution of the same hand that existed all those years ago and will continue to hopefully exist years in the future. I wouldn't feel comfortable if someone wanted to clone me. Or like, there's that one consistent meme of teleporting where like they erase your body. They just take your consciousness and duplicate it in a new body that's in the new location you teleported to. I would never want to do that. I don't know. Mainly because I just place too much value on my original flesh, because what I was born into. It's who I am, fundamentally. It's kind of like arguing, are you you, as in your flesh and your bones? Or are you, as in the sparks of consciousness? If I were to rip everything out of you that represented the you, as in the conscious and subconscious, and just place that in a jar, does the body, does what you are really matter? Do you associate yourself with your flesh and bones? I do. I consider a big fraction of who I am, not just the thought process that goes on inside my head, but how I carry myself, how I speak, how I move, how I walk, how I talk, and I can't do that without a physical form. And imagine, in this case, Deodra, for all intents and purposes, is gone. Like, the not literally, fundamentally, on every single level. This isn't cloning as in you get a different body, but it's just you, just with a brain transfer or an exact duplicate of you. No. The original Deodra, the one that exists currently in the original timeline in Camelot, that has a weaker and frailer body, but still exists, that guy's gone. Good as gone. He doesn't exist anymore. This is Deodra's consciousness plastered over. And especially considering Ironside is the kind of guy who believes, oh, the soul hasn't had time to form memories yet. And I know this is a completely different thing. Like, obviously, maybe you guys will be down with me ripping the soul out of your body and executing your former self, or leaving your former self to rot in a grave somewhere, if I could promise I could take your soul and memories and consciousness and stuff like that. But personally, I wouldn't. I don't know. I kind of don't like it. I don't like the idea. And honestly, I can't imagine being Ironside in that moment. Like, not only do you have to live for the rest of your days knowing for a fact that you slaughtered an innocent family, an innocent, well, admittedly, they're a royal family in this time period. Who knows? They may have not been innocent at all. But at a bare minimum, if you don't care about the parents, if you don't care about the cart drivers, you don't care about any of that, you just care about the random human life he very specifically snuffed out. I don't believe Ironside. I don't think anyone believes Ironside 127 when he said, oh, the baby's just recently gone. You see, I would have never done anything. He just happened to perish right as I arrived. Yeah, he slaughtered them all. You have to live with the fact that, yeah, not only did you slaughter that innocent, presumably innocent family and that innocent child, but also, plus, that baby that your wife carried for 9 months, that baby that is the combination of you and your wife, that being that is what you sought and took care for and did everything, all that is gone. You executed your child, essentially. That's what Ironside did, because Deodra is his son. Percy isn't. In the same way that current Percy, the Percy in the main timeline, is not Ironside's son biologically, spiritually, or anything. This alternate timeline Deodra isn't Ironside's son. Not anywhere close. The only thing that may be there is the loose concept of a baby soul, which Ironside even admits may not really even be a thing. So Deodra doesn't exist. This is just this is essentially Percy. For all intents and purposes, if Deodra had just managed to plop on the spot, like let's say Deodra ended up perishing in Mortlock's arms in the previous chapter, and then Percy opened his eyes, then that would be it. That's essentially the same thing. I don't know. I think maybe this is just my own headcanon, from my understanding of biology, I think literally the flesh and blood you grow up in, the body you age with, is a fundamental part of who you are. That's not Deodra. It never is, and it never will be. So I can't imagine Ironside being okay with it. He looks so happy. You even see Varghese in this alternate timeline. Once again, this is all Percy's headcanon. Who knows how they would have actually felt. But Varghese looks happy. Mortlock looks happy. They're all hugging. Like, I don't know. I can't imagine. Notably, I don't have kids yet, so I definitely don't have grandkids. Plot twist, unless someone wishes to inform me that they're randomly my grandkid. But I can't imagine being in Varghese's position. Living with the idea that, oh, by the way, my son executed a random family, took the baby, took the life of the baby. The baby's now cooked. And he took my actual grandson, ripped the soul out of him, supposedly, and put him in this new body. That's not me. That's not a quarter of me and whoever my significant other was at the time. No, that's just some random guy that happens to have the soul, consciousness, or whatever of my real grandson, who I now have to lay in and bury. Because presumably they aren't going to keep the body, like, unless they go to Jericho and be like, hey, can you freeze this? Obviously they aren't going to keep Deodra's original body. So they still have to bury their grandson/son. I don't know. Maybe that's just me, big existential crisis, weird pencil stuff. That's my big thing. I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. I get why Varghese ran away with Percival in the original timeline, because heck, even if it wasn't for Percival's sake, it'd be for Diodra's sake. I can't imagine sacrificing my own grandkid's original body for the vessel of some stranger. Call me crazy, call me boogie bonkers. I just couldn't do it. I literally couldn't. Ugh, I don't know. But then again, I've always just had issues with cloning. If you've been around the channel for a little bit, you can always tell, especially considering how untrustworthy I was of Zaza and his crew to begin with, of the mini Percys and them. You can probably tell I've never been the biggest fan of cloning, but this especially, ugh, I can't. It gives me the heebie-jeebies. I don't like it. Tell me what you guys think down below. But, of course, we go down this alternate world line. Everything goes back to Kingdom Hearts. It always, one way or another, Kingdom Hearts will always be mentioned. The alternate world line of Diodra in Percy's vessel. And we see Diodra learning how to walk. Diodra starting to train with his father. Diodra spending time with Varghese. Diodra being read a bedtime story by an older Ironside. Diodra with Varghese and Ironside in this happy new world, this happy alternate timeline, where Diodra got the life and body that was promised to him, where the life spirit wasn't taken away by the grandfather who probably loved and cared for both the children more than Ironside ever truly did. And ultimately, this seems like a happier world, doesn't it? A world where Percy cannot be an enemy of Camelot, where Percy isn't even Percy. Percy doesn't exist. This world where it's all Diodra. Diodra will help Arthur conquer the world. Diodra will help destroy the lives of countless innocent people. Diodra will be indoctrinated in the dark world that is chaos. Camelot. Isn't that wonderful? Isn't that great? Isn't that fantastic? Isn't it beautiful that this path shall be forever walked down? I don't get how this is a happier timeline other than Varghese is alive. Let me drop the pretenses. I don't get how this is a happier timeline, broski. I really don't. Percy seems to imagine this is a happier alternate timeline. I don't. But maybe that's just because I think too broad scale, and I think about the narrative as a person who transcends it. That's such a big word. Oh yes, me, that guy with the pencil. I transcend the Four Knights narrative. I load if even in Chaos Arthur, which I do, because like I can just close the book. But still, I don't know. And you're gonna hear my thoughts. Admittedly, I've mellowed out. You can check the live reaction out over on Patreon for as low as $1 a month, or over here on the channel as a member for as low as $3 a month. It'll be up by this point. But let's just say I didn't have the most positive of reactions, and you're gonna find out what my reaction is to the choice that Percy makes after considering this alternate timeline. We're gonna have a wonderful time. I can already sense the comment. I can sense the comment section from here. But with that being the case, it's a 30-minute live reaction, by the way. It's quite beefy. But we got back to Percy in the modern day. He thinks, if I could have just woken up as Diodra, I'd never be in this fight with my dad. And Grandpa would still be alive too. We see Percy cry these tears. And notably, when first reading, I thought Percy was going to snap out of this. I really did. Because he looks at his friends, right? Like, obviously, I'm a big Lion King fan. I know I never mention it, right? Like, especially considering how much of a Kingdom Hearts fan I am. And I'm a Disney kid by proxy. But with that being the case, you think I should mention Lion King more. But if there's one lesson that has stuck with me consistently from Lion King, it's what Rafiki says. You can either run from the past or learn from it. And ultimately, this is a case where you kind of have to learn from it. Nothing that Percy does in this chapter, nothing that Percy will continue to do from this point, will ever bring his grandfather back. Unless he runs into Melascula again. That's too late. Melascula's already cooked. And I don't think there's any more Fountain of Eternal Youth or whatever to give Varghese eternal life somehow. Varghese is dead. For all intents and purposes. That man's gone. So, moving on and developing from that point is what I thought Percy was going to do. Especially when he saw his current connections. You can see he opens his eyes and he looks at the people who care for him, the people who he's made connections with, the people who have shown him love and care and affection, and he's fought alongside and risked his life with alongside them. This is the group of people that Percy, not Percy, the original human vessel, not Theodora, but the life spirit that took the vessel of Percy, the lost human. That person made these bonds, made these connections, just as Gawain ended up realizing that she's a valued and cherished friend Percy is. These people love him. Whether it be Lancelot, whether it be Donnie, whether it be Nasians and Anne, who may love him on an even deeper level than Lancelot and Donnie do. And even newer friends like Gawain, like Isolde, like Tristan, like even Kion. You know it's bad when Kion over here is looking sad. These are the people that he's made these connections with. These are the reasons why, in my opinion, when I first read, I thought Percy was going to snap out of it, because you can't change the past. The past is something that we'll never be able to get back. All you can do in life is look towards the future. And sure, is it a sad thing when we make mistakes? Is it a sad thing when we lose those who we love? Is it a sad thing that the ruthless and never-ending passing of time will never allow us to walk backwards and change things that we wish we could have changed? Absolutely. But it's too late for Varghese. It's too late for Theodora. 16 years have passed, Percy. You now have bonds all your own. You now have people you need to be there to protect and care for and love, just as they want to be there to protect and love and care for you. And we see, once again, you know it's serious when Gawain isn't even doing anything to Isolde. Percy says, I love all of you. And of course, Anne and Nasians are worriedly wiping his tears away because they're wondering, dude, are you okay? What happened? What is just because he said you're not supposed to exist doesn't mean you're supposed to fall for that malarkey. And we see Percy. He goes down the doomer route, and like, once again, I'm a full grown man, and even I have existential crises. Like, not every week, but like every couple months or so, I'll sit back and be like, do I really matter? Do my actions matter? In the grand scheme of the possibly infinite universe, even within the very limited course of human history that can only really be dated back a few thousand years, I will be no more than an insignificant speck upon a mountain of insignificant specks for in a million, maybe even billion years when the universe goes dark. I will not have even mattered. Why should I bother? Why should I try? Why should I've gone down those spirals before, like especially when I'm talking about the one homie and we just both go, like if it's late at night, we're on that late time call, we're just chilling and we're just talking about existential stuff, because both of us, we both love astrophysics, so we both understand one way or another the universe ain't eternal. that thing gonna die out one day. So we understand that, and we retroactively think about the very limited nature of our lives. Once again, humans are lucky to live 100 years in the modern day with our super extended lifespans when we used to perish at like 30. So like, trust me, I understand the insignificance of human life and the fragility of it. Trust me, I do. I've lost people before and I'm going to lose people again, and one day people will lose me eventually. But you have to be able to live and enjoy and not give into that dark despair and mania and concern. But of course, Percy, he has the existential crisis, and I guess when you're 16, you have that first existential crisis and you just can't stop. As he says, but sooner or later, I'll bring misfortune upon all of you, just like I did with Grandpa. Sooner or later, I'm bound to regret it all. I'll think, if only I wasn't a knight of the apocalypse. And don't get me wrong, this some WW dark imagery. The strewn out bodies of everyone he knows and loves. Lancelot, Kion, Isolde, Tristan, Gawain, Donnie, Anne, Nasians, all perishing one way or another if he walks down this path that he's already walking down. One day, Percy, the only realistically true immortal, if we're being completely honest, as long-lived as I would like Tristan to be, as much as I would love to theorize that he gains from his dad's immortality or pseudo-immortality through his grandpa, if Elizabeth is any indication, at best he'll live to 1,000, if we're being generous to Tristan. Don't get me wrong, Lancelot has a super extended lifespan, but you take the average between however long you think the royal fairies live, ultimately, he'll perish one day. By old age. Lance already has grown to a 16-year-old organically. Who knows what he's going to look like in 80 years? Maybe he'll perish young too. Maybe the human lifespan is just too weak and it overrides the fairy DNA. We already know he has some limitations based on his human DNA, such as the lack of flight in his regular state, to the point where he has to transform for it. Percy, one way or another, is the only guaranteed true immortal, because he can't actually perish. He's not really alive. He's kind of like a walking, talking puppet. Like, how do I put it? Imagine if you were to create a robot that is powered by the sun, and you put it in a position where it could never like break or anything. As long as it kept getting fuel, it would keep going on forever. That is Percy, for all intents and purposes. He is that robot, that being that kind of can't actually experience the end. Sure, he's aged. He's gone to 16, but look at how young he is in comparison to all of his compatriots. Who knows how long it would be until he actually stopped aging, or who knows what would happen if he did age to the end of his human lifespan. Would his body simply refresh in a similar vein to spoilers from popular series spoilers? That's the thing. That's the sad thing about like knowing the end of series that haven't been animated yet. Like, I don't want to spoil them because there's some really nice twists that deal with the end of stuff like that. But if you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. Maybe that's what Percy would end up being like. That eternal nature of his life and his nature as a life spirit only leads to tragedy, right? Ultimately, the wisest choice, the safest choice, would be to abandon. Well, hold on, let me get to it in a second, because we see he thinks of all this dark imagery. He thinks of, admittedly, once again, some great dark imagery here, him building the gravestones for everyone else, because he's the only one who's left at the end of the day. He thinks the dreaded question. And there are moments where even I've wondered about the alternate world where that guy with a pencil didn't exist. If I just hadn't been born. I've thought about it. Ironically, you know what gave me the idea for that way long ago when I first had that like existential thought experiment? It was the darn Fairly Odd Parents episode. When Timmy wished that he didn't exist. And he had that like whole like existential journey with Jorgen. It was that episode. I blame you, Nickelodeon. You're the one who caused me my first existential crisis. I was like wondering like what would it be like if I didn't exist? Admittedly, it's very hard to do because like certain canon events can't happen. Like, in the people who I know and care about, like, if I didn't exist, a lot of weird stuff would happen as, like, byproducts. The butterfly effect is a real thing. Like, don't think about it too hard. But, like, just imagine a major event that happened with somebody because of you. Trust me, there's at least one. Even just you being born. Heck, you being born. You existing at all. As, like, inside your mama. That's a major thing. If you just delete that, things change drastically. So trust me, it's very hard to do. But Percy, he must have. Is there like a Nick Plus? I don't know. There's a Plus everything nowadays. There's a streaming service for anything and everything. He got Nickelodeon Plus, and he saw that one particular episode of Fairly Odd Parents, and he thinks the dreaded idea: I shouldn't have been born. I shouldn't be allowed to exist. And once again, I can tell. Nakaba wanted me to be sad, or he wanted me to agree with Percy in a twisted way, shape, or form. But unfortunately, despite me being literally and figuratively illiterate to the point where I just can't read, I got enough cognitive power to know that the decision Percy makes in this chapter is, ironically enough, inherently selfish and pretty stupid. But we'll get to that in a little bit, because he thinks the question, right? And I personally believe, no matter what, everyone deserves to exist. You're here for a reason. Even if it is just to exist, existence itself predicates itself, in my opinion. Not even I think, therefore I am, therefore I am. If you exist, that means you were worthy to exist, one way or another. And not even worthiness as in like Thor's hammer worthiness. Not even worthiness in the sense of like that, but no. You won the hypothetical race. You were biologically chosen. You exist. The rock down the street exists. The earth we stand upon and sit upon exists. The conversations we have exist. Everything exists. And there's an endless, infinite sea of countless other infinities that simply don't exist. But we are. We were given the chance, and I think that in of itself is beautiful and valuable. But unfortunately, Percy cannot think that for himself. And unfortunately, ain't nothing like an existential wombo combo to come hit you up than the original person, the original hive mind, to come back and try to reclaim you. Zaza comes in. Let me take a sip. You may continue your quest for revenge against Ironside, the man who placed you in there. And Percy turns, tears on his face, in this extra-dimensional space. And Zaza simply extends the right hand. Or you may return to where you should have been. It's your choice, my brother. But as you fear, if you continue your journey as a knight of prophecy, there's no doubt your friends will have to shoulder a painful fate. So, here's my thing. I'm going to talk about Percy's character writing in this chapter and why I kind of don't like it, even though it does kind of make sense within regards of Percy's character. I know that sounds super duper weird. Let me cook a little bit. But this kind of writing I actually really, really like. Now, I'll be real with you. My understanding of eusocial insects, like eusociality as a thing, like not just insects. The main ones I think of are ants, bees, and naked mole rats, ironically enough. Those are the three things with eusociality, the idea of a colony, a sort of hive mind, a queen kind of thing. One thing that always made sense to me, and makes sense with Zaza's writing here in particular, is the idea that Zaza's goal is to kind of not exist. It is to serve the hive mind, the great one. Return to us. Become one with us again. This is a mistake. Come back. Join the hive. Join the colony. You didn't actually deserve your right to exist. You are a mistake, an error in our code. Return yourself to us, for you have no name. I have no name. We are the Great One. Come back. That's the kind of writing makes sense. Once again, Zaza doesn't care. Zaza isn't a thing. Like, it's weird because I know I'm going on this whole idea of how Percy's a thing, but I assume Zaza is sort of just the Great One kind of calling itself back. Like, I can't think of a scenario that either A, doesn't spoil another popular series, or B, that can be applicable in our real life. But I imagine if, I don't know, a bee or an ant were to suddenly attain independence, other bees and or ants would be like, hey, where you going, bucko? Come back. That's not your life. That's not your role. That's not your purpose. Come play your role. Come back. Come serve the queen. We need to serve the queen. The queen needs us. The queen needs you. But you don't really exist. You aren't an individual. You are one. We are legion. Like, on something like that. So this kind of writing makes sense. Zaza, and once again, I've been talking about this since they were pretty much introduced. You can go back. You can check the Carfax. That's the beauty of me having almost all the chapters I've reviewed. I may still go back, especially now what's revealed at the end of this chapter. I may actually have time to go back and just review some things that I missed. But I never trusted Zaza. I never trusted the mini Percys. I never trusted any of them because they didn't seem right. Something in my heart of hearts believed it was wrong that they existed. And once again, that is heavily chalked up to the fact that your boy is super duper biased against cloning or hive minds or anything like that. It always freaks me out. I've never been a fan of it. But this especially, it makes sense. It makes sense that it would want him back. It would feed him straight lies. It would feed him straight lies. Because this right here, what Percy theorizes and what Zaza tells him is truth based on his theorization is a straight lie. Well, not necessarily a straight lie. It's a possibility. But to quote Sonic the Hedgehog, I see it, it's always been inside of me. The possibilities are never ending. Quite literally. There are endless possibilities when it comes to this whole scenario. But breaking it down, I will wait just a little bit longer because we're almost there. We're almost there before I drop my whole real thoughts, before I smack my real thoughts on the table. But we see Zaza, the hive mind, the beast I never trusted, extend its hand. try to get its wayward drone to come back to it. The life spirit that had the nerve to gain sentience and independence. The Great One reaching out, trying to draw it back into its fold so it's nothing more than a piece of it again. And here's the thing, right? It's wild to say this. I can kind of empathize with the Great One. Well, not empathize. I can sympathize with it. And you want to know why? How mad would you be if one of your body parts just randomly rebelled? Like, it could be something insignificant. It could be, considering how powerful and how important this Great One is implied to be, I assume Percy is like a drop in the ocean. Remember, the behemoth itself was its own weird Great One kind of thing. Like, it was a massive, weird biological creature on its own, composed of a raging storm of souls and mini Percys and stuff like that. So Percy's, once again, likely just a drop in the bucket. A fraction of the Great One. But, like, imagine if you just couldn't control your pinky one day. It just decided to go off and do its own thing. Whether it actually physically left your body or not, you couldn't control it. Or you couldn't control your hand. You couldn't control your ear or any part of your body. If you couldn't control your left nostril or your right big toe, regardless. That one thing, even though I'd be happy for it if my pinky went out and randomly made a whole bunch of pinky friends and became a pinky pal with a whole bunch of pinky people and it lost one of its pinky pal friends and stuff like that, like if it went on its own journey, I won't lie, I'd still want my darn pinky back. Like, sure, I don't use it too often, but like, I literally don't use it at all, even when drawing or writing. Typing though, do I even type with my it'd be harder for me to type without my pinky. It's such a minor inconvenience, realistically. I theoretically could exist without my pinky. I could exist without my right big toe. I could exist without, I don't know, my left, well, probably not my left kneecap. I kind of do that to walk. But like, any minor thing, I could probably exist without it. It wouldn't actually be an issue. I could let it roam free, but I'd want it back. Because why wouldn't I? It's me. It's a piece of me. Why would I want it to gain independence? So I can actually kind of sympathize with it. I understand that hive mind mentality in the sense that if I consider my body a hive mind, if we consider our flesh a hive mind, which technically it is. Technically, I don't know, at least me and my friends, and I've seen it before online, we joke about the idea of us just being big, gigantic mech flesh suits, but we are, legally speaking. The brain is what controls the rest of us. And even then, our brain, the consciousness, at least, maybe this is outdated. I watch a bunch of old videos, but maybe it's outdated. But we haven't actually found like a consciousness part of the brain. Like, we don't know where like we originate from. Like, our subconscious and conscious, we know they exist. Me being able to communicate with you is a sign that my conscious and subconscious exists. You being able to comprehend that is a sign your subconscious and consciousness exists. We don't actually know. Like, we can't place a certain part of the brain responsible for that. We know which parts of the brain control our sides of our body. We know where our memories are stored. We know all that, but we don't really know where we come from as an individual. But hypothetically, that same metric for the Great One, if a piece of our body randomly rebelled, we'd kind of want it back. So I understand why the Great One kind of wants Percy back. Does he need him? No. Or does it need him? Because once again, I don't know what the Great One is. Does it need him? Probably not. It has literally infinite life spirits. It could probably res Percy 1 billion times and not have a wink of fatigue. Because once again, remember, the Great One presumably is responsible for life in all the different realms. In all of creation, really. Probably beyond the world of the Seven Sins realm. Of the mortal realm. Of the demon realm, goddess realm, all the realms. Regardless, it's responsible for all life. But just a wayward spirit, because it doesn't want the others getting ideas. Imagine if your pinky rebelled, then your pointer finger decided, you know what, I feel like leaving too. Then your thumb, then your toes, then your, I don't know, the back of your head. Like, regardless, I can kind of understand it. Weird, though. Weird how I'm empathizing with this weird, gigantic hive mind thing, even though I kind of hate things like that. But of course, we see Percy cry a little bit more. And he makes, in my opinion, one of these stupidest, most backward, most ill-conceived. He should have talked first. At least in my, I know this sounds so wrong, but if before you decide to leave Percy, maybe you should have talked with your friends first. You know, the people you love and care for, the people you're making this choice for, supposedly. Like, how do I put this in a way that makes sense? You ever been told? Okay, this is very specific for like people who've had significant others before. I know some people don't have that. But even just in general, not even just that. Have you ever been told it's not me, it's not you, it's me? Like, oh no, I'm sorry, I just can't do this with you anymore because I'm worried for your safety. Why don't you talk to me about that first? Before you go do XYZ thing, before you abandon me or in any way, shape, or form, why don't you communicate? Why don't we see if this is something we can work out? Why don't we see if there's something else we can do? But no, Percy does not decide to talk about it. He decides that he's gonna put on his big boy pants and make his big boy decision and decide to abandon all his friends and condemn them. He essentially condemns them to the end of their lives. He realistically does this because look at what Percy decides to do. Zaza, the great one, the hive mind, jiggly me, as he puts it, extends his hand. And Percy takes that hand. Gives in. And admittedly, the representation of what happens here, the original life spirit that is Percy, we don't get to see what happens there. But presumably the connection whipped the life spirit out of Percy. And with that being the case, as Nosius and Anne try to talk to him, try to communicate with him, try to do that thing that Percy should have done with them, he simply falls back onto the ground. And of course, this is a teeny tad bit concerning. Percy was just fine. In fact, he had taken no damage. Sure, he got a little existential crisis, but why is he falling down? And Nosius asks, Percival? And even Mortlock is a tad confused. Of course, he has a gaping chest wound, but he's still conscious enough to notice, like, whoa, wait a minute. Why'd my not-nephew just perish? What happened? And we see Anne squats down and tries to, communicate with Percy. What? Why'd you fall down? You surprised me. And she goes to shake Percy to try and get him up. Presumably, admittedly, I have been around people who've collapsed before. You do want to make sure they're okay, especially if they fall backwards on their head like that. You gotta be like, oh, sweet mother mercy, someone call an ambulance. But of course, we have the doctor right here who immediately diagnoses Percy with fatigue. And he's like, oh, it must be the fatigue. But of course, Nosius takes a closer look, and being the doctor that he is, you always want to reach for the neck. Presumably, Nosius reaches for the neck, or typically the wrist. I'd say the jugular is the best. The jugular is the best spot to detect for a heartbeat. It's the bigger vein than any veins on the wrist. But of course, if you aren't comfortable touching people's necks, always go for the wrist. Even though I can barely feel my heartbeat through my wrist. Yeah, I can barely feel it. So I always go for the jugular. not in the way that the Lion King offers it, but no, go for the jugulars and checking if someone has a pulse or anything like that. So Nosius likely reached there, but then he realizes, wait. He's not breathing. No pulse either. Yeah, he went straight for the jugular. And of course, naturally, the revelation of him not breathing and not having a pulse is quite concerning. And Lance immediately turns. And we see Donnie, being the Donsters. He's like, come on now. Yo, calm down. Whoa. No pulse. He's cooked or something? No way. And Lance immediately, and I love the big brother energy here, where he immediately says, move. And he instantly lands, scaring Donnie. And Lance immediately lifts Percy up and goes, Percy! And Schwartz and crew naturally ask, because of course this is their savior. Imagine if, I can't make a joke. I won't make a joke. But imagine if someone who helped you out a lot in the past, helped you and even some of your friends out a lot in the past, just randomly collapsed in front of you. Literally say it, say a doctor, say you were in a bad situation, like a car accident or something, and the doctor who saved all your lives, legitimately, performed the surgery, did everything. You're chilling with that doctor after the fact, talking about how much the medical bills are going to be, and suddenly the doctor was just they started crying out of nowhere and immediately collapsed. You'd probably be concerned too, and the natural question is, what happened to the doctor? What happened to Sir Percival? And Lance, likely in a combination of his magic sensory abilities and his mind reading and the lack of vitals, he has the realization as fear and worry consumes him. And we see that Donnie, once again, huffing some good old-fashioned quality copium. He's just like me, for real. He says, whoa, don't scare me like that, Lancelot. There's no way Percy would be cooked, is there? those mini Percivals will float out and fix him up like usual, yeah? Because, of course, this is one of the biggest things that I was wondering about stakes-wise. Like, well, if the Percys, the mini ones, are always going to pop out and heal him, I guess I never really have to worry about Percy getting cooked. And I assume Nagaba, oh, he played me just like that, As Lance doesn't respond, and you see Lancelot break down and start shaking as he reveals his magic force is completely gone. Percy's not with us. And of course, you see Anne and Nosians, the two people who arguably love Percy more than anyone else thus far, go into shock. And we see the two separate reactions. Nosians is frozen, locked in concern. But Anne naturally responds with denial. Quit the unfunny jokes. Percival's alive and well. Get out of my way. Percival, wake up. I mean, you're the one who won the battle, aren't you? You're not even hurt at all. It's crazy. Come on, open your eyes. Come on. See, this was hitting for me. It's hard to tell. It's hard to tell the live reaction. But, like, especially on retrospect, after sitting down for a second, this is hitting for me. Like, obviously, you gotta imagine, this is, like, the worst case scenario, right? Like, Percy just randomly, he just plopped. He just straight up plopped out of nowhere. This has got to be absolutely terrifying and confusing for anyone observing, especially people who deeply care for him. So they're confused on what happened. Just spontaneously, just like that. It's insane. And we see that she begs him to open his eyes, but he's simply not responding. Percy's gone. And of course, Anne reacts with denial. There are numerous stages of grief. Shock. Well, admittedly, I don't know the stages of grief. But at least we have multiple reactions. We have denial from Donnie. We have shock from Nosians. We have denial with a hint of anger from Anne, who pushes Lancelot away. And then we just have fury. Cold, silent fury from Lancelot. As he asks, you... what did you do to Percy? I wish, honestly, I do wish Nakaba drew a vein or two here, but the detail on Lancelot's knuckles and the way he's gripping the blade says it all. And we see Mortlock just being I really thought I was gonna like Mortlock. And I do like his character writing now that I have more of it, but darn, bro, he immediately says he just vanished. The crime of his existence. He couldn't bear the weight of it. Dio, Nora, I've done it. Your uncle has... And Lancelot doesn't even let him finish. Mortlock. My, oh my. Like I'm reading Dragon Ball Z all over again. The uncle of the main character, got. The grandfather of the main character, got. Shoot. All I need is for Percy to come back and get a power pole or something. Because, he low-key had one too. Mortlock dropped. Just like that, He's cooked, ladies and gentlemen. The uncle of the main character is cooked. Honestly, it's also satisfying. And I love it, too. The look of pure fury, the pure indifference. Lance simply takes his life with the weapon he just received. And I don't know, seeing Mortlock's twisted mentality. Like, I get it. Once again, that's his nephew. That's all that remains of his beloved sister who took care of him for a majority of his life. And once again, I cannot sympathize or empathize with him because I've never had a remotely similar situation. So, of course, if I was Mortlock, I likely would sympathize or understand the scenario a whole lot more. But I can't imagine that. For all intents and purposes, Percy is a human being. Essentially, from Mortlock's perspective, he just gaslit a 16-year-old into offing themselves. Does that make you feel good? It's like the same issue I have with Ironside, hypothetically taking Percy's body, slaying Percy's innocent family, and doing all that for his own kid. Like, how can you sleep at night? How can you think that that's an okay thing to do? I don't know. I get this is a twisted world of magic, monsters, beasts, demons, and all kinds of other things in between, but like, it's just so, it feels so wrong that Morlock would be that way. But I suppose it's only natural, and it's only natural that his retribution is swift and clean by the hands of the Knight of War. And this might as well be a declaration of war, right? Whether it be Percy's end or Lance doing this is a declaration of war. And we see one of Mortlock's subservients saying, "Lord Mortlock, how dare you?" Dog. You're combatant. Ironically enough, in the same way that Arthur later on in the chapter goes to congratulate Mortlock for his dub. Come on now, you should be happy. Mortlock got exactly what he wanted. Warrior's End by the strongest knight of the apocalypse, and he got the dub on Percy, even after losing to Percy. What's wrong? Why aren't you happy? And we see Rosebank is even sad herself, and Lancelot is just consumed by pure vitriolic anger. I assume none of these knights are going to survive except for maybe Rosebank. None of them are going to live. Lance is going to pop off. He's going to pop off. But unfortunately, as we see Orlandi perched in a corner, being the eye for the man in another world, we cut away. Well, actually, no, not yet. As we see, "Percival, why? Please, come back for us." Do I talk about it here? I'll talk about it in a second. We're going to get to it in a second. We're going to get to my issues with Percy's characterization in this chapter and why I think that this is stupid and why I think what Nakamura was going for, which at least in my opinion, if I had to take a guess, what Nakamura was going for and what he probably succeeded with a whole bunch of other people, where he failed with me, or at least he didn't, maybe failed is a harsh word. He didn't hit the nail on the head exactly like he was probably going for with me in particular. Admittedly, though, I'm a weird dude, so we'll get to it in a second. We see all the people look on. From Isolde and Gawain to Kion to Lance to, I don't see Tristan or maybe even Kion here, but still, we see them all crowd around Percy's body. Even the demons watch on in silence as Percival is gone. And we cut back to another world. A world of illusions and dreams. A world of chaos and Camelot. And we see Arthur, prosthesis and all, eyes darken as he looks through Orlandi. Such a noble sacrifice, such a glorious deed. Truly splendid way to meet your end, Mortlock. He's so happy, bro. And once again, I love Villain Arthur. I can lean with it, rock with it with Villain Arthur. Do I wish it was a bit more progressive? Absolutely, but I can kind of get it, and I still think there's time to see his like proper fall into chaos and stuff like that. And there's still definitely time to save him, quote unquote. Like there's still a whole bunch to go. But as we get Villain Arthur, I'm loving Villain Arthur. The slow clap, the dramatics, the lack of care for his own subordinates, all that. I'm loving it. And we see that he actually realizes that, oh wait, maybe I should actually care just a teeny tiny bit. But I should offer my condolences first. Ironside. And we see Ironside could not care less. He couldn't care less about his own brother-in-law. He's a stone-cold, ruthless kind of man. I'm not shocked that he has no real reaction to Mortlock's end. He couldn't care less. He got exactly what he wanted. Kind of, sort of. Thank you, my lord. I am just as proud of my brother-in-law. You know what this reminds me of? Actually, not really. But it gives me like similar vibes to different reactions. Fire Emblem Three Houses. And Felix's whole hang-up about his own brother's end serving, perishing like a true knight. It reminds me of that. I don't know why. It reminds me of that. But I feel like there should have been a more reaction like that if Ironside actually cared about Mortlock, but it's clear he didn't. Ironside doesn't care about anything but what he wants. So his lack of reaction genuinely fits into his character. That's the thing. All the character writing in this chapter, from things that are like non-sentient hive minds to people like Ironside, to people like Arthur, to people like Mortlock, to people like Lance, to the entire Percival platoon, to heck, even Mortlock's own men, all of that is fantastic. Just Percy. It sticks in my craw. I'll get to it in a little bit though. As we see Arthur says, "Oh, you look like you wanted to say something, pale god." Percy, dog! This This is where you lost me, Percy. This is where you lost me. Percy, I hate to have to do it to you, bucko. I really do. Percy. I'm not going to draw that one. I'm not going to. You aren't even worthy of that one. Percy. You know, first you had me. You had me, bucko. At abandoning all your friends when they needed you the most. Just because your quote-unquote existence didn't matter. Over a man who you can't even save if you decide to leave. You had me at that. Then you had me at, like, in Lanceman. Then you had me at making my main man Nazi. It's sad. And Antu, and the Donners, and probably Big Papa Sylvan as well. You had me at all that. But where you lost me, where you made me despise you, where you made me not happy at all, is when you decided to make my main man Pelgard sad. Dog. Bucko. That's where you lost me. That's where you hurt me. That's where you stabbed me in the heart. Look at how sad he is. I can tell he's pouting through that helmet. Percy, how could you? Percy, I trusted you. If I could hit the Arkham Knight quote, I would. I trusted you, and you just left him to be sad. Percy, how could you, bucko? I'm gonna have to teleport into the manga myself and cut you free from the Great One myself, dog. What? Percy, my bullet. How could you do that? Man, but yes, Pelgar's sad. Because, of course, he lost his nephew. He lost his actual nephew. Killed, who cares? Bro. Ironside brother-in-law, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Morlock, who cares? He loved Percy. He was trying to raise Percy, train Percy, use him as an asset, be proper with him. But now Percy's gone. He's gone! Or no, what? How's that Steven Universe line go for the finale? She's gone! But now Percy's gone. Now Pelgar's sad, bro. It's the saddest part of the shadow, though. My boy Pelgar's sad. Talk. Percy, how could you do this, bucko? But we see that Percy has started something that cannot be stopped now. You called for us, King Arthur. Ah, there you are. I called you 4 evils here for one reason and one reason alone. Now that one of the 4 knights has perished and the prophecy has been crushed, it is time to begin the invasion of Britannia. Yes, my lord. 2 new Knights designs, the reveals of the other 4 perils. I think we've seen at least this design before, way back when in like chapter 16. This design I don't exactly remember, but cool. We got the other 4 perils. But now, before we get to the very, very end of the chapter and I'll wrap this up, I want to explain why I really don't like this decision on Percy's part, even though I still think it's right and that fits into his character. This is the easiest way. Like I mentioned earlier, there are infinite possibilities. That's the beauty and also the terror of life. At any moment, anything could happen. Quite literally. Especially if you believe in like the concept of no, the world was simply born from chaos. 2 things simply big banged and bada bing, bada boom. Life managed to evolve millions upon millions of years. Things can just happen. The universe is a weird, wild thing. So there are endless possibilities. But, in my opinion, there are ways to control and limit those possibilities and guide them in certain directions. So, the possibility that Percy feared, the possibility from all the way back here, that his friends would perish, his friends would fall, he would bring misfortune upon them all, just like he did with his grandfather. That's not actually his grandfather. That fear is justified. Because of course, naturally, if he keeps traveling with them, of course, there's the possibility that they could end up perishing, just like Varghese did. It's an absolutely valid fear. W fear, in fact, W fear. But Percy, bucko, I want you to put on your thinking cap. It's a little bit too late. Where's my thinking cap? Here's my thinking cap. I'm going to put on my little thinking cap. Percy, let's put on our thinking caps real quick, buddy. Let's put on our thinking cap. What are you, the Knight of Prophecy for? What is the whole thing that you are currently fighting to prevent? Oh yeah, the destruction of the world. By who? Oh, Camelot, or Camelot, as it's properly known. Oh yeah, Percy. So let's rub our big old brains. Let's massage our massive giga galaxy brains here. What do you think is going to happen to your friends who you have alongside very specifically rebelled and fought against Camelot for the past month at least? Do you think they're going to be spared? Do you think Arthur's just going to stop being mean and evil because you decided to off yourself? Or maybe what happens at the end of this chapter was going to happen the moment you decided to abandon them and essentially solo end the prophecy yourself. The invasion of Britannia, and likely the retribution for all the Chaos Knights you've harmed. And the fact that you've abandoned all your friends to deal with the mess you put them in. Even though you supposedly left to avoid that dark fate in the first place. I'm not saying that Percy's the strongest knight. I'm not saying he's the second strongest knight. I'm not even saying he's the third strongest knight. You can make a pretty solid argument that a full power Gawain with all of her hacks and abilities and her general superior magical knowledge and seemingly relative battle experience would have more than enough to defeat Percy. But what I am saying is that there's no argument that you can make out of this little 10-man group that we had left that Percy was anything lower than the fourth weakest. And not only that, he had fantastic utility. The ability to heal endlessly and take care of the lethal wounds of all of his friends. Very, very useful asset, Percy. That ability had very, very useful. Now that ability's gone, and Tristan's currently out of magic. So say hypothetically, at this door to Camelot, which you have left them all at, if, I don't know, Arthur were to walk through, or the four evils were to walk through, or anybody of any decent power were to walk through, all your friends could just perish right then and there. Which wouldn't be happening if you didn't decide to off yourself, Percy. Galaxy brain, crazy. Oh, and you're worried about them meeting the same fate as your grandpa, so you're going to abandon them so they can meet the same fate as your grandpa. That's what I'm hearing? That's the logic that's behind it? That's the thing. I don't think it makes any logical sense for Percy to abandon the people that he cares for. I don't. I just don't. I don't even think that's in Percy's character. That's why it feels weird to me. I don't think Percy would make the... here's the thing. It makes sense, but it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to me that Percy would decide that abandoning his friends is the best way to protect his friends. It doesn't make sense to me at all. That's like me saying, okay, in order to make sure that I drive safe, I'm going to put a blindfold on and put my pedal to the metal at all times. Never even consider I'm going to remove the brake from my car. I'm going to put a blindfold on and I'm going to just go. That's how I'm going to drive safe and keep the people who I'm driving with safe by abandoning all logic, means, and options for safety. Like, does that make sense? Does it seem logical? Does it seem... No, right? At least not to me. That's what it seems like Percy did. He put the blindfold on, and he abandoned all his responsibilities to leave all his friends to perish. That's what he did. Because him simply existing alone was holding off Arthur's invasion. He should have known that, because he's one of the four Knights of the Apocalypse. So by abandoning the prophecy, Arthur now has no reason to fear anything that can happen, if he even had reason to fear in the first place. His existence alone was a stopgap. And the thing is, right, he's worried about them meeting the same fate as Varghese. Varghese is gone. He was never coming back. Varghese is cooked, fried, flipped, broiled, whatever adjectives you'd like to use. Varghese is gone. He was never coming back. But you know who did have a chance to stay alive and never have to worry about coming back in the first place? Your friends, Percy. The friends that you involved in this scenario. The friends that you care so deeply for that you're willing to offer yourself harm, Percy. Guess what? You have now just exposed them to a much higher likelihood of being the same fate as Varghese. I don't know. That's what feels weird. But guess what? Even though I feel like that's out of character, even though it feels weird, even though it's literally the stupidest decision Percy could have made, giving into the gaslighting of both Mortlock and Zaza and the Great One in general, it still makes sense for me. You want to know why? Because Percy's stupid. He's a dumb 16-year-old boy that wouldn't think twice about doing something that he immediately thinks would save his friends. So sure, does it make absolutely no sense that he believes that somehow abandoning his friends and allowing them to deal with a war on Camelot without him supporting them in his healing abilities and essentially completely allowing the facilitation of the invasion of Britannia, doesn't make absolutely any sense that he believes that would save them? No. But in the moment when he's extremely emotionally vulnerable after realizing that he literally shouldn't exist, not just on a metric of someone that he doesn't know in terms of the internal jiggly him, but also the external arguments of his own uncle, quote unquote. Yeah, it makes sense. So that's the thing. That's why I said in the intro, you ever been mad at solid writing? Because this makes sense. You put that into account, all the writing in the chapter is fantastic. In fact, before we even get to the end of the chapter, I'm going to tell you something. Oh, it's worthy. Oh, it's absolutely worthy. But I am nettled. I am nettled because PERCY made the dumbest decision humanly possible. He just did. He did the dumb move. And don't get me wrong, I'll take the dumb move for character, but he did the dumb. Those are my thoughts. Please tell me your thoughts. Please tell me your thoughts on that, because I don't know. I took a quick glimpse in between the recording of the live reaction, which you can check out on our Patreon for as low as $1 a month to become a member, for as low as $3 a month to check out here. I did take a look at the general community reaction real quick in my little break between recording the review and recording the live reaction. And it seems like a lot of people are sad. I feel like Nakaba is getting a lot of the reactions he wanted, but a bunch of people are hyped too because of what is revealed at the end of the chapter. But I haven't seen anyone like take the exact same perspective that I have. So I wonder if I'm being weird, if my perspective makes any sense, and what you guys feel about it. So please let me know down below if you made it all the way here. We are like an hour in. But of course, we get the 4 EOs reveal. And we see that none of them will ever forget the day the person we love so much went away. Chapter 128, The Day You Went Away, Part 1 End. We are on break for not just next week, but I believe the next 2 weeks. We come back with Part 2 on the 28th, I do believe. That's what I read somewhere. So, yeah, Part 1 of Foreign to the Apocalypse is over. And PERCY, at least for now, seems to be gone. Do I believe he's going to stay gone? Not necessarily. I don't know. I don't believe Nakaba's really going to bait and switch us this late into the series. I think PERCY is going to come back one way or another. We do have a spirit summoner in Kion right here, right now. I could see him ultimately being the key, in spite of his hatred, because look how soft he's looking in this chapter. I could see him being the key to bringing PERCY back. I'm expecting a little bit of a time skip, though, which is the only weird thing about that. Like, I don't think we're going to end Part 1, take a 2-week break, and then come back and be in the exact same time period. So I'm expecting some sort of a time skip, but there's a lot that can happen from here. Nakaba is for sure cooking. In the live reaction, I wasn't so sure if he was cooking, but now I do believe for a fact that Nakaba is cooking. And I'm very excited to see what he cooks 2 whole weeks from now in chapter 129, or part 2 of 4 Nights of the Apocalypse. However, of course, that is what I think. Please tell me what you guys think in the comment section down below. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, please do me a favor and leave goodbye. Oh, night. Okay, that's way too long. Leave the dead death in the comment section down below. I want to thank you guys so much for watching once again, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. But please leave a like, share, comment, and subscribe, and make sure you hit that little notification bell so you don't miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, I do have a Patreon down below. You support for as low as $1 to get the links, exclusive videos, early content, and more. You also become a member of the channel for as low as $3 a month to get the same perks and more. Some of those perks include the 30-minute live reaction to this very chapter. Now, I want to thank you guys so much for watching once again, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is Dak on the Pencil, writing off. I'd like to give a thank you to our $3 members, Recliner Plays and Red Bull 4765. I'd like to give another thank you to our $5 patrons, Winter, Victor, Sean, Midnight Gem Lord, Kevin, and Demix LND. I'd like to give a hefty old thank you to our $10 patrons, Robbie Uchiha, Joaquin, and Idem Okami. I'd like to give another final thank you to our $25 member, Alex Ice Rose. And a final scrumdiddlyumptious gargantuan thank you to our $25 patrons, Igneal and Calvin Elder.